discuss that further. So at this stage, is there any further call? The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I appreciate the comments by the member and her questions today, of course, and the invitation still stands from question time. If she'd like me to look into that, those things, she'll get in contact with me directly, and I can put those through to Housing New Zealand. We might be able to get some answers to her, so very happy to do that. Generally across the housing portfolio, we've got, social housing, which is in there, then private rental market, first home buyers sort of in their first homes, and then other housing where people have bought their second or third home, or their home for life, or whatever it is. So there's a sort of a housing continuum there, and we're particularly interested as a government, as I know other parties are, in the sort of bottom end where people are struggling the most. They might need state housing, they might need housing by another community housing provider that provides other services such as mental health or district nursing services, or parole sort of help because they might be recently released from prison or whatever it is, right through to sort of the first home buyer market. But in that section of state housing, we've got a real challenge in the government, and the previous government had it as well, and any future government will of any hue, and that is the fact that many of the state houses were built in the 1940s and 50s. Many are in the wrong towns in this country, or at least there's too many in some towns and not enough in others, such as Auckland, and we can name some other places as well, and it'll be no surprise to anyone. Also, because the houses are so old, they're in need of significant repair, and also many are the wrong size because they're three-bedroom houses, and actually these days people often live alone, or they have very, very large families. So we need 1 or 2 bedroom houses and 4 or 5 or 6 bedroom houses for large families. And I've talked about this for some time and laid it out to this Parliament that is a big issue. And yes, they might like it to be responded to overnight, but we're talking 70,000 state houses here, many of which are housing the most vulnerable. And I'd have to say that every time we go to shift someone out of a state house to repair it or to bolt it and rebuild a nicer one, the Green Party or the Labour Party oppose that. So on one hand, in Tamaki, for example, where we've got almost 3,000 state houses up there, many on quarter and half acre sections, many very, very old and in a serious state of disrepair, many where families who are on the waiting list would love to live. When we go in there to do a massive development like Tamaki and start removing the old houses to rebuild new state houses, houses for the community housing sector, houses for first home buyers and so forth, the Labour Party's upset about it. Well, you can't bowl and rebuild a house without moving a family out to an alternative state house. And I must say, in most cases, tenants are offered an alternative state house, if at all possible, where they'd like it, which is often close to where they are now, and sometimes it's a complete other neighbourhood. But what I am laying out for the House is that if you want these housing upgrades, which we do, and you want to spend the money, which we do, and you want to build new as much as possible, which we do, then there needs to be a degree of change, and change is difficult, and we need to understand the fact that that's difficult on families, and you can't just do it overnight. But we're doing that in Tamaki, we'll be doing it in Christchurch, we're doing it in other areas of the country, and we've just simply got to move forward. It's also important to understand that many of the state houses across the portfolio are not insulated. In fact, through the previous Labour government, they didn't seem to have a particular focus on insulating state houses. They're beating the drum in the Labour Party that we should force landlords and homeowners right across New Zealand now to insulate their houses, yet they sat there with thousands of state houses uninsulated during their 9-year terms. Three-year terms, they're 9 years. We're saying no, we'll insulate every state house in New Zealand that can be insulated, because many you can't, but all the ones that can be insulated, we want to insulate them. We believe that it's best to put the government's housing stock in order before we stand on some sort of moral platform that everyone else has to do it. So the Labour Party and the Green Party need to check themselves, ask themselves the question why they never insulated every state house in the country, and yet under a national party we are doing it. And we should be finished by the end of next year. So we'll be insulating state houses. We're proud of the fact that we'll be insulating them, and we'll be upgrading state houses. And we do support the community housing sector. In fact, one of the things we do with the community housing sector is make sure when they build build a house, of course it's well insulated because the laws say so, but they're also including other things like wide doorways and wide passageways wherever possible so that they're easily adjusted. So, Mr Speaker, we're doing a lot of work in housing. It's taking a lot of work, but we would appreciate everyone's support.
The question is that vote housing stand part of the schedules. Those of that opinion will say aye. Of the contrary opinion, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that vote conservation stand part